Hello, Sanjay sir. Thank you so much for being here and taking out the time to do this. So just a brief introduction. Sanjay sir is the co-founder and CTO at Quick Heal Technologies, one of India's leading antivirus software development companies. So before we go into talking more about Quick Heal, talking more about your initial interest in electronics. So it was in your second year of college when you started working on computers that came for repair to your brother Kailash sir's shop. And that's when you really came across working with viruses and you realized that this is something that you're passionate about. So what was that initial journey like that made you curious about this space? And how did you go about teaching yourself and debugging programs?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, you took me to the old memories of how it started. So right, you are right. Actually, I'll take it from the point when I was doing 12th, actually 11th, 12th, just after 10th standard. When I was doing 12th, I had selected electronics as a vocational subject because electronics was my passion at that time. And it came from like my dad used to do radio repairing and all those things at home. Even my elder brother was doing electronics related repairings like calculator repairing or other things, so that really attracted me, and I was not at all knowing anything about computers. So when I passed 12th, I tried getting admission into engineering for electronics actually, and I couldn't seek admission or in any of the colleges in Pune, but I was able to grab it in out of Pune, like in Karad, Sangli colleges. But then I don't wanted to move out of Pune as well. And in that time, my elder brother Kailash was working with Data Star Electronics and doing repairing and maintenance of laser posting machines, which were used in banks in those days. There he realized those machines are getting gradually out of use, and then banks are going to move to computers, and that's where he felt I should also do computers. And then we looked for computer related degrees, and uh, BCS was something new, which stands for Bachelor in Computer Science actually. And just first batch has started, the first year has started. So I took admission into BCS during that time. It was 1989 actually. And in BCS, in first year we were introduced all general topics like statistics and some logic building that also include hardware as well as software. And gradually I got introduced to computers during BCS. And in during the second year of BCS, I was knowing Pascal language. I was knowing computers, some bits of hardware assembly language as well. And in those days when I was uh, trying to, means I'll tell you, see, computers is something about practicals, more than theory, and I love practicals. But practicals for those days were like once a week, 3 hours. Some day was allocated, and 3 hours of practical. Rest of the week we were doing theory. And during practical, many a times our practical used to get postponed or cancelled because of either power cuts, because it was during Thursdays, or sometimes lab used to be down because of some computers be infected by virus. And that's where I got introduced to the topic called virus, and I was like very curious why that was hampering our practicals and how it can stop or malfunction the computers. And as you rightly pointed, I also used to visit my elder brother's workshop where he used to work, and he had started on his own. By the time when I was doing BCS, he started doing computer repairs, and that's where I also used to go and see how and what things are happening in electronics, because that was my passion. But then there again, I got to know that the PCs were having viruses, and they used to come for repairs to Kailash's shop. So virus was a biggest challenge, started becoming bigger challenge in those days. And I was I could understand that virus is a software challenge, not a hardware challenge. So that's where for the first time I got introduced to the virus. And since I was studying BCS, I was also knowing topics like debugging, and assembly language was one of the topics. So debugging virus something came into my mind during that time, the second year of BCS, and I was able to use the debug tool from which was available free from DOS operating system. DOS was the operating system at that time, and I could debug a infected file and could see what virus was trying to infect, how virus was trying to infect other PCs, other files on the PC, and also stay into the memory even after the file had stopped executing. So that's how gradually I started learning about virus during those days. Actually.
Right. So what you mentioned was that he realized that banks are like their system's going to become obsolete and computers are going to take over, which is such a
Right.
foresight to have, and that's how you got into this, which is so interesting.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So like you said, you because you had the knowledge, because you were studying computers, and you also realized that this is something that you're interested in. Something really impressive was that you debugged the boot record of a floppy disk infected by brain, which was a MSDO, the Microsoft Disk Operating System virus created by a Pakistan based hacker. So what was that process like? And also the program that you wrote was then used by others as well. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right. So, yes, in fact, viruses, since DOS was the most used operating system at that time, Windows was yet to get introduced. We used to have operating system even on floppy, actually. So anybody you can boot the machine using a floppy disk was the concept that time, actually. And as I said in my earlier reply that debugged a file at that time which was infected by virus. Boot record was something that was again a new technique by viruses introduced that time, and brain virus was the one of the first virus that infected the boot records of the floppies, actually, which you rightly pointed, it was created by Pakistani hackers. And so for me it was also a difficult task. I realized how to debug a boot record because it's not a file. But at that time, even for DOS, there were a lot of other tools that were into use by maintenance guys. Like PC tools was one of the tools, which was, I still remember, it was a very popular tool. Just like Norton utilities, PC tools was popular for DOS, actually. And using that tools, I could copy the boot record and create a file out of that, actually, the content of the boot record into a file. And then I debugged using a debugger for the same file, and I could see how boot record functions, actually, how a machine boots, how OS takes control, and how things are gradually the complete OS gets means started, actually. And then when the boot record was infected by brain, I could see that the virus had moved that boot record to similar and to some other sector on the same zero track. And the boot record where the OS files were, I mean, OS code was there, was replaced by a brain virus, which was again a 512 byte small virus. Actually, it was a very small virus. And I could see that the original boot sector, the virus had kept it on some other sector on the same track zero. So I could write a C program and shift the original boot record from some the place where the virus had moved and placed it on the original place where it was on the zeroth track, actually. And it worked. So I was so happy that it really worked. So that C program I converted into a EXE tool, and I distributed throughout the college, as well as my brother was using the same tool for cleaning brain viruses throughout across his customers, actually. So that's how that tool got popular during those days, actually.
Yeah. Also, another thing was in that time, I think people were so used to using pirated devices. They didn't realize that it's important to protect your data and get antivirus tools for that. So, when you initially launched Quick Heal, I think the first antivirus software was released in 1994. So, can you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit more about that product and how you developed it? And also, how difficult was it to make people realize that this is something important that you need to buy?
Right. So as I started this journey, like when I created tools, my passion was to create something that will be helpful. I never thought of making it as a big antivirus company at that time or anything. But as I joined Kailash, and we thought, let's create an antivirus product, because those days a lot of viruses were troubling a lot of customers, and there were antiviruses which were there from MNCs, from most of the MNC global players like Dr. Solomon, McAfee, and those products were very costly at that time. So we thought, let's create our own antivirus, and we never gave a business angle to it or a commercial angle that it will be difficult to sell or what, but we just jumped into that using all the earlier tools. I clubbed all the code of the earlier tools, created an antivirus. It took me at least 6 months to 9 months, and then I created a DOS based product which had all the virus detections and cleanings of the prevalent viruses in those days, and we named it as Quick Heal. We released it, and at that time we realized that, okay, selling in India is very difficult, because yeah, even though we had dreams of like selling it, we were selling it for rupees 500 per floppy. It was a floppy based product actually, but we hardly got any customers. Almost, I'll say, more than 2.5 to 3 years, there was not a single customer who bought the product. But at the same time, we got very good feedback from everybody who used it, because when we distributed it free, if nobody was buying, we at least, and at that time, I never focused on creating something that can stop piracy. I didn't had a lock on the software. So maintenance guys, companies used to use the floppy, copy the same program, move it, and then this copied program used to get distributed, get viral, and people used to use it as a free tool.
Yeah.
And you rightly pointed, hardly anybody buying PC at that time was investing into buying software. So nobody was buying software. Everybody were having pirated operating system, pirated tools like Lotus 123, which was for a spreadsheet, or anything for WordStar for documentation. Those were the tools for DOS actually. And we realize it's very difficult to sell when piracy is at the helm actually.
So as Quickheal grew, another problem you started facing was that because you were at that time there was only Microsoft disk operating systems, you had to write
Mm.
code on a lower level to interface with the hardware, and to develop that you needed help from Microsoft. But that was something that large MNCs and multinational companies had access to. So how did you go about tackling that?
Yes, you rightly pointed the next challenge, which was into the product development. Writing a regular application on any platform is completely different than writing a kernel level program that can intercept OS calls, or intercept file system or a memory. Because for applications, there are integrated environments where you can create tools and then start developing. But for system level programming, it does need lot of interop testing. I mean to say interoperability between the operating system and your program. So many a times we have to test it across different configurations of hardware. We have to test it across different drivers of the OS that comes along. And often, as you rightly pointed, we used to come across a challenge where certain clash used to happen with either printer driver or either file system driver, and this was a difficult challenge to solve. Now, you to imagine the challenge, you'll have to think that how the world was before internet. At that time internet was not there, so we didn't had any access to any information online, which right now we have. Means nowadays we have a lot of information online, we Google and we start searching, but at that time there was no internet, and so only source of information for us was books in the libraries. And whatever books were there, we used to go through them, but it was not up to date, because OSs keep updating and books takes time to come actually. And so that's how, even though I understood the DOS internals, it used to happen that many a times I used to get stuck up in certain driver level, and we used to get means see that how come competition products are working well, because those are the products which were developed by MNCs. And then I realized that there used to be a system globally, antiviruses or any other system level programs which are developed in, say, developed countries like US. They have access to a lot of material from the vendor itself, like Microsoft, which was lacking for us. So usually books too are not enough actually many a times. And so when it comes to writing drivers and kernel level programs, this support from the OS vendor itself is very important. And as gradually we learned on our own, it was a difficult and a long path to learn on our own. But after that, when we became popular, and at the same time when we started getting access to internet, I was able to reach out to Microsoft and people there, and then I was able to get help from them after, I'll say, 5-6 years actually. So for initial 5-6 years, everything was on our own actually, I mean to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you said, everything was on your own, literally, because I think it was very long before you actually got developers on your team, and it was just you. And there was also a key moment for Quick Heal when you developed the automation tool that was made robust enough to deal with 1,000 viruses a day. So how was that like?
Yeah, so that was one more big challenge. Actually, I'll tell you one story. So what happened, we used to write virus detections and cleaning solutions for whatever we used to come across from our customers in India. Okay. And in Pune or whoever means around customers who used to use our tools. And if at all new virus they come across, they used to tell us that your software is not able to detect, then I used to get hold of the sample from the customer, and then we used to work on that. So pretty much like 2-3 new viruses per week. But at the same time, our work was recognized globally because emails had started earlier in India before internet, and through email I was able to reach out to the journal from UK, which was called as Virus Bulletin Journal. And then through having access to that journal, I used to connect with the other researchers who used to contribute articles to that journal. And from there, I realized they were also working on viruses, but the count that they used to say about the number of viruses they used to deal per week was huge, like almost hundreds of viruses per week. And they started interacting me like with me that how many viruses I see. And since internet was not there, the viruses used to not reach India that fast actually. So I started thinking, if at all, means as the internet starts spreading in India, we'll start seeing more viruses actually. And those from those researchers I learned that there will be a time in say a year's time or a 2 years time that we'll have to face thousands of viruses per day. And if you see, we need people to debug a virus, analyze it, write a detection, write a cleaning solution, and it used to take a couple of days for one virus to finish by one developer. So I started imagining, if there are going to be say thousands of viruses per day, I'll need thousands of people to work for me in that case, if we have to keep updated ourselves. And that's where I realize it's not going to be possible, and there has to be some new way or automation that will only solve this problem. And then that thought started running in my mind. And those were the years when, I'll say, it took me almost again 6 to 9 months on writing a automation tool which could help me develop detections for the viruses automatically actually. So I just have to provide the sample, and it used to spread the sample, boot the machine, take the snapshots, all that, everything automated. And if that automation once done, it used to handle at least 500 to 700 viruses per day, depending on the speed of the computer. And if I can apply multiple computers, I can handle thousands of viruses per day. That's what my aim was. And it took almost, as I said, 6 to 9 months. I could develop that. And that really helped me. I mean to say, it really happened in couple of years. By the time I'll say 1998, 99, we started seeing more than 1,000 viruses per day actually.
Yeah.
And that automation tool really helped me.
Yeah.
And do you know how much is the count now per day, the new viruses?
I can't even
it's
get.
it's it's more than 3.5 lakhs per day actually. So 3.5 lakh new samples per day we see, which again, it's handled by most of the automation. And around 4 to 5% of the viruses are very notorious, I mean to say very complex, where we have to add a manual touch to complete the detection and cleaning actually.
Right. So, like you said, and in your previous answer as well, I think you and Kailash sir both have a foresight, and you were able to see into the future as to what would be a tool that would be required.
Right. In fact, those days there were a lot of antivirus companies who had to shut down after that kind of influx of viruses. Those who didn't develop the automation were no more working after 3 4 years because they couldn't handle the number of viruses that we started seeing actually.
Exactly, yeah. So through your journey, we've discussed a few key points and like some of the challenges you faced. But is there like what are some of the key learnings after all these years that you felt that through all these challenges you worked through them and Quick Heal is now such a big success? So do you have any instances or examples of like some key learnings that you've had over the years?
Okay.
Mm.
um, Key learnings involved a lot of things. I mean to say, from starting, if we see earlier, as said that I was never imagining that I am going to create India's best antivirus. At that time, my focus was to make sure how we can help customers. But during that journey, I really learned the whole process. One is creating a product which is a world-class product and can compete and is at par with the international products, and at the same time marketing that product to the Indian consumers, which is again a very difficult task, which Kailash and myself really did a good job. Means it took us at least 3 4 years to learn how to do that, but then after we were able to do a good enough marketing about our product, which helped us to drive away the competition from the Indian market actually. So when I started, most of the MNC brands were having full market share actually. Quickly hardly had any customers, but then in by 2009 2010 we were able to grab more than 30% market share of this antivirus market in India actually.
Right. And like you said, most MNCs mainly targeted and had a lot of products, but something that Quick Heal worked on was the viruses that they would face, and also the public would face on a daily basis. Based on that, you would make the tools. So, what do
Right.
you think helped you compete with the MNCs, or what were some key factors or pros of Quick Heal that you think helped compete and, like you said, grab 30% of the market share starting from zero?
Yes, so as you rightly pointed, so MNCs were established products in the global market, and for me to compete with them in the Indian market, they were already feature rich, and creating a product of that level was going to take time for me. I cannot develop that many feature rich product in the, I mean, day one to fight with them in the market. But then what I realized and how I focused was, and this can be a very good learning for everybody, is that I focused on what customers are facing. So I mean to say, even though customers were using MNC antivirus products, they used to still face certain challenges in using those products, and those were the pain points that I captured and tried to focus on when my creating my product. So no matter, even though I'm not having all the features that of the MNCs, but my product used to make sure that those pain points are not there with our product. So I'll list a couple of them or maybe few of them that will give you a good idea, because those features were the differentiators actually for Quick Heal, and which really helped me to gain the market share. So starting from the days when the internet was introduced in India, internet was very costly at that time, and it was a dial-up connection. It used to be very slow, and people used to dial to VSNL or BSNL and then connect to internet and download things. And many a times we observed that dial-up connection was not stable. It used to get disconnected. Many a times the connection used to get dropped. And if you see, we used to release updates through internet, and most of the antiviruses started releasing updates through internet, and updates become very critical for all the antivirus products to stop the newer viruses. But update used to be bigger actually. It used to take some time to download, and because of this unstable connection, the MNC product used to start it all over again. So when the internet connection is dropped, and when it reconnects, they used to download the whole update again and again. If there is a disconnection, it used to start from the beginning, and it used to take time. So I realized, no, this can be a very big point. A customer may not get that update in the day's time also. So Quick Heal was the first antivirus in those days where we had this feature of update resume. It used to keep the copy of the download, whatever partial download happened, and if there is a disconnection, it used to maintain that with the checksum. And then when the internet used to resume, we used to resume from the same location to further. So our update used to get complete in certain number of attempts, and that really helped to make sure that Quickheal used to work even in the not so good internet connection and still give the results. So that kind of differentiator was there in Quickheal, and gradually after that many of the products started doing the same thing. But Quickheal we did that long back actually.
Yeah.
Similarly, I can give you one more example. People in India used to use pirated operating system. As I said, DOS was the beginning. And so if you are having pirated OS, you cannot have a clean bootable, because see, if you are buying a OS, you'll have a whole box and tools and the floppy disk which are original, and they are read-only floppy disk which cannot be overwritten, and they used to be used for booting the machine. But people who don't have license copy, they don't have that floppy, they don't have that way to boot the machine. And if at all there is a virus infection, most of the MNC products used to say clean boot the machine and then clean the virus. That was the first step. But for Quick Heal, if I put that dialogue or prompt that clean boot the machine, people used to say, okay, how can I clean boot if I don't have the bootable? So there I realized we should have a feature where we ourselves can boot the machine without the help of clean bootable. And Quick Heal, again, we created that floppy wherein we used to boot the machine from the whatever OS files the user had,
Yeah.
and clean boot the machine without the help of any floppy disk. Again, that was a differentiator, and that really means helped all the Quickly users to clean their machines without having the original bootable floppy.
Yeah.
So these kind of differentiator we kept on creating year on year. There used to be different challenges, and we used to solve them differently in our software actually.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Sanjay sir. This conversation has been so insightful, and there's so many key takeaways. It's been so nice hearing you, talking to you, and learning from you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Navya. It was really great to talk to you, and you really brought fresh memories of my older days, and it was really exciting to talk to you. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.